Divine assurance. 7 miraculous ways God will fight for you through prayer and prophecy today. In the heart of Ashcroft, a quaint English village, stood a chapel that bore witness to countless prayers that penetrated the heavens. It was within these ancient stones that fervent whispers of devotion would awaken divine possibilities. Sarah, a devoted mother, was known for her steadfast faith, lighting up the lives of those around her. Yet, a storm brewed upon the horizon as her beloved son, David, a lively lad of 11 with laughter like a sweet melody, was enveloped by a mysterious illness that left doctors scratching their heads and families with quivering hearts. As shadows closed in, hope flickered like a candle caught in a gust. Gripped by desperation, Sarah felt a divine urgency to rally her community. She announced a weekend of intense prayer at the chapel, urging everyone to seek the intercession of St. Jude, the patron saint of hopeless causes. That weekend, the air around them thickened like honey, a mixture of prayers and sobs mingling together in the fading light. Hymns rose from the crowd, reverberating against the stone walls, each note reflecting faith that could move mountains. With each prayer, Sarah felt an electric pulse of divine connection. Amid the reverent silence, a prophetic whisper echoed in her soul, urging her to prepare for David's miraculous healing. It sent ripples of hope through her heart. But doubt had a way of creeping in, like a veil trying to obscure her faith. Murmurs from the village, voices questioning her conviction against the cold realities of science, began to seep into her thoughts. How could she face this whirlwind of uncertainty and maintain her armor of belief? As days turned into agonizing nights, David's condition flared. Heartache weighed heavy on Sarah's chest. With every setback, her trust trembled. She brought anointing oils, enveloping David with fervent prayers, yet each flicker of hope was met with chilling reversals. Panic clutched at her soul. How could she protect her son? The burden felt insurmountable. Just as every thread of hope was close to unraveling, the congregation organized a night of worship that promised to shake the very foundations of their faith. Voices, filled with longing, reached up to the heavens, entwined with the soft strumming of guitars and piano keys. Sarah stood amidst that sea of faces familiar and beloved, each heart aligned with hers. It was a moment electrified by divine anticipation. Then it happened. As the chorus of prayer soared higher, a palpable presence enveloped them, as if the very air thickened with a divine resolve. Gasps swept across the room, a wave of reverence, washing over the gathered faithful. And in an unexpected turn of events, David began to stir, his breathing steadying, color rushing back to his cheeks, a stunning testament to God's miraculous power. Joy erupted throughout the chapel. Hearts that had been shackled by anxiety now sang of liberation. What had begun in desperation transformed into a growing beacon of faith. Yet amidst the joy, Sarah's heart wrestled with a deeper question. Would her journey through despair lead her to unconditional trust in the unfolding divine mystery? What lay ahead for her and David? As heavenly light danced in their midst, the lingering shadows beckoned, whispering of trials yet to come. Would they stand united against the fragility of human life? The story of faith, healing, and challenge had only just begun. The days that followed David's miraculous response became a whirlwind of joy and gratitude. Sarah embraced each moment with a heart bursting with love, watching her son's laughter return, echoing through their home like a sweet song that had been silenced for too long. The energy of hope danced in the chapel, reverberating through the village, transforming the bonds of community into something sacred. Yet, as the euphoria settled into everyday life, shadows of uncertainty loomed on the periphery. Sarah could no longer ignore the whispers that still clawed at her heart. What if this was a temporary reprieve? What if David's illness returned with a vengeance? The worried thoughts were like clouds threatening to obscure her hard-won light. Instead of focusing on the brightness of their current moments, she found her gaze drifting toward all that could go wrong. Determined to strengthen her faith, Sarah sought solace in prayer, often retreating to the quiet of the chapel. The pews, worn but warm from prayers long past, became her sanctuary. It was here one afternoon, bathed in golden sunlight filtering through stained glass, that she felt a gentle nudge from the divine. She opened her Bible, and her eyes fell upon the words, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." Proverbs 3 verse 5. A soothing warmth enveloped her, easing the knots of anxiety. "Lord," she whispered, "I trust. Help my unbelief." Just then, a kind voice interrupted her reverie. It was Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman whose wisdom had guided many in Ashcroft. Placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder, she said, "Dear heart, fear can sometimes cast long shadows, but the Lord knows your grief, your love, and your hopes. Have faith that He has greater plans." Sarah nodded, feeling the warmth of communal faith wrap around her. Mrs. Thompson's presence was like a gentle reminder of what being part of a community truly meant, not just sharing joys, but also carrying each other's burdens. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, whispers of excitement filled the chapel. The next gathering was to be more than a service. Discussions of a healing ministry emerged. The thought electrified the congregation. They envisioned a place where they could come together, pray, and share testimonies of God's goodness. A place where even those who might doubt could find their way to hope. But Sarah felt another flutter of anxiety. A new journey was ahead, and the stakes felt higher. What would healing ministry entail? What if their efforts bore no fruit? Would they be prepared for the persistence of doubt that could sneak back into their hearts? That very night, Sarah received a phone call that sent a shiver through her. It was a friend from the village, someone whose family had faced recent heartaches. "Sarah," she said, her voice trembling, "I need your help. We've been battling this illness, and I don't know how much longer we can take it." In that moment, Sarah realized that her path wasn't just about her own struggles. It was also about the collective story unfolding in Ashcroft. God had orchestrated her healing for more than just herself. It would become a testament to resilience, strength, and the mystery of His plan. With a heart pounding with faith and trepidation alike, Sarah gathered the courage. "I'm here for you," she replied softly, "and we will pray together." As she hung up, the reality of their collective fight settled in. They were part of something much larger than individual struggles. Would their faith blossom into a deeper trust that could weather any storm? With breaths of hope and prayer, they stepped into the unknown, hearts aligned for healing and discovery. The questions loomed large as the new journey began. Could they face adversity again and emerge stronger? Would they cling to faith like a lifeline in the midst of resilience? God's assurance promised more than they could comprehend. As days turned into weeks, a new rhythm enveloped the village of Ashcroft. The healing ministry began to take shape, and Sarah found herself deeply involved, coordinating prayer meetings and inviting those in need to share their burdens. There was a serenity in these gatherings, one that reminded everyone of the tender light of faith that bound them together. On a Tuesday evening, the air was crisp, and the stars began to twinkle like diamonds scattered across the night sky. Citizens gathered beneath the old oak tree, each person radiating a blend of hope and reverence. A sense of urgency gripped Sarah's heart as she scanned the crowd, seeing familiar faces and new ones, all searching for solace amidst their trials. Suddenly, a deep voice cut through the murmurs fluttering in the chilly air. It was Pastor Jim, his presence commanding yet comforting. "Tonight, let us not only pray for healing but also share our stories," he urged. "Together, our testimonies can light a path for those in darkness." The crowd stirred as one by one, people stepped forward to share their experiences. A woman introduced herself, her voice wavering, recounting how she battled a relentless illness and how, just last week, she felt a sudden wash of peace while praying. Others spoke of their struggles in facing overwhelming loss, yet each story was laced with hope and a yearning for divine intervention. As Sarah listened, a flame ignited within her. She realized that their pain connected them, crafting an intricate tapestry of faith woven from the threads of vulnerability and strength. Tears streamed down her cheeks as others began to see God's work reflected in their lives. They began to exchange words of encouragement, Hands reached out to comfort one another, bridging the gaps between individual struggles. After the last story was shared, Sarah felt a gentle nudge in her spirit. Drawing on the courage she had been cultivating, she stood up. What we witnessed tonight proves that even in our suffering, God's light can shine through us, she declared, her voice firm yet warm. Let us pray together, inviting God into these circumstances, being vessels of His miraculous presence. As they bowed their heads, the night felt pregnant with possibility, like the very air hummed with sacred energy. Sarah prayed fervently, her heart yearning for healing in the community, asking God to mend broken families and restore hope. Waves of unity rippled through the group as silent prayers echoed, and intertwining whispers filled the night. When the prayer concluded, silence enveloped them for a moment, broken only by the sound of rustling leaves. And then came a quiet reverberation, the unmistakable sound of that faithful heart, David, replying softly from the back, "I believe." His words hung in the air, radiating trust. Others caught on, whispering, "We believe," with a shared certainty that felt like a baptism in faith. The atmosphere thickened, infused with an immeasurable grace that transcended their spoken worries. But beyond the warmth, a question lingered in Sarah's spirit. They had tasted the fruits of their faith, yet the road ahead was vast and uncertain. Was their newfound trust a sufficient armor to face what lay beyond those peaceful moments? As hope surged in her soul, a flicker of fear reminded her of the battles still to come. With these reflections stirring within her, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that a greater mystery awaited them. What would happen when their faith would be tested again? Would they hold firm in the face of an imminent storm? She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the journey ahead. Could it be that every shared story and united prayer was preparing them for an even greater revelation of God's servitude in their lives? The adventure of faith had only just begun. The evening came to a close, but the hearts of those in Ashcroft remained ignited. They lingered under the old oak tree, sharing quiet conversations like precious secrets. Sarah felt enveloped in a blanket of warmth, the kind only shared faith and hope could provide. Yet, as much as the atmosphere sparkled with joy, a soft stirring of uncertainty still nestled in the corners of her mind. Days passed, and with each rising sun, Sarah began to sense an undercurrent of change in the village. News of the healing meetings began to spread, reaching neighboring towns. People unfamiliar with the community wandered in, drawn by whispers of hope and miraculous stories. They came bearing deep burdens, physical ailments, broken relationships, and spiritual despair, all seeking solace in a space that had come alive with faith. As Sarah prepared for the next gathering, her heart raced with both excitement and trepidation. Were they ready to embrace more seekers? Would their small, tender community be able to hold the weight of so many souls in need? As she set the chairs around the tree, she thought of each person expected. Every chair represented a story, a struggle, and a profound hope. When night fell again, the air was electric, filled with the rustle of leaves and the distant sound of arriving footsteps. Pastor Jim opened the evening with a prayer that resonated with everyone's hearts. His voice carried the echoes of faith and yearning. The crowd, now larger than before, swayed between anticipation and anxiety, united by their struggles, but unsure of what to expect next. As stories began to unfold, Sarah noticed a new fervor within the crowd. A young man stepped forward, his eyes bright with determination. "I lost my sister this year. She was my best friend, but I know that in surrendering my pain, God will weave a story of restoration." His voice cracked, yet there was a steadfastness that caught everyone's breath. One by one, people shared, revealing deeper layers of their hearts. A mother spoke of her son's addiction and how she learned to lean on God's everlasting arms. An elderly man recounted the loss of his lifelong partner, but from that shadow grew a ministry he never anticipated, serving lunches at a local shelter. With each testimony, Sarah felt the fabric of their gathering strengthen, stitching hearts together with a thread of hope. Tears flowed freely, mingling with words of encouragement, and before she knew it, an unbreakable bond formed in that sacred space. As the evening progressed, Pastor Jim encouraged a moment of silent contemplation. Gazing upward, Sarah was captivated by the starry sky, each twinkle reminiscent of every prayer offered. In that stillness, an unexpected thought flickered. Could they be a beacon for not just their village, but beyond? What if this was merely the beginning of a mighty movement fueled by faith? In her spirit, she felt a call, a whisper nudging her towards something more. What if we acted on the stories shared here tonight? What if we stepped out of our comfort zone and reached out to those on the fringes, those still lost in darkness? The thought spiraled through her, sending excitement racing through her veins. The night eventually drew to a close with stirring songs of hope, but the question still echoed within her. Would they truly step into these unknown waters together? With their hands clasped in prayer, the community held each other tightly, knowing they were on the edge of something greater than themselves. As they finished, the rich aroma of fresh bread from a nearby bakery wafted through the air, a symbol of nourishment and new beginnings. In that moment, Sarah felt an indescribable assurance. It was a promise that even when facing the indeterminate future, they were held firm in divine grace. What lay ahead for Ashcroft? Would they rise to the call to extend their hearts further into lost spaces? The answer loomed on the horizon, ready to unfold. Faith, it seems, was about to face its greatest test yet. The days that followed were a mixture of anticipation and divine wonder. Ashcroft transformed, not just in numbers but in spirit. Each person who sought comfort became part of the intricate tapestry of faith that Sarah felt weaving around the community. They prayed together, sang together, and embraced an undeniably sweet presence of hope that was palpable. One afternoon, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold, Sarah volunteered to walk through the village, inviting people to their next gathering. Her heart pounded as she approached the old church on the corner, nestled between vibrant gardens that seemed to bloom just for such a purpose. En route, she spotted Mrs. Thompson, a reclusive widow who lived alone. The soft murmurs of life outside her door hinted at a long-lost warmth yearning to be reignited. Taking a deep breath, Sarah knocked softly. The door creaked open, revealing the familiar face, now etched with shadows of solitude. "Hello, Mrs. Thompson. We're having a gathering at the oak tree tonight. I'd love for you to join us. It could be a wonderful chance to share and connect," Sarah invited, her voice genuine. For a moment, uncertainty clouded Mrs. Thompson's gaze. Then, she spoke, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf. "Oh, dear, I don't know. My heart hasn't been light in a long time. Sometimes, just a step into the light can bring the warmth of hope back," Sarah encouraged, reaching out to hold her hand gently. A spark of understanding ignited between them. Slowly, the corners of Mrs. Thompson's mouth lifted slightly, a faint glimmer of hope breaking through the clouds of her sorrow. "All right.
I'll try. I could use some light."
As Sarah turned to leave, a gentle wind swept past her, rustling leaves and filling the air with the scent of blooming flowers. Was this the spirit whispering encouragement? It felt as if nature itself was affirming the sacredness of their mission. That evening, the crowd grew yet again, the old oak tree a testament to the flourishing life surrounding it. Pastor Jim began the meeting with a heartfelt prayer, the kind that wrapped around everyone like an embrace. Sarah watched joyfully as Mrs. Thompson arrived, her step tentative but determined. It wasn't long before the sharing began anew. Shoulders relaxed as stories spilled forth about grief and joy alike. A young mother described the burden of her child's illness, but now spoke of her newfound faith, a lifeline coursing through her prayers. A man shared how years of financial despair had transformed into a testimony of provision, how he stumbled upon help when he least expected it. And so, as the evening deepened with shared laughter and tears, Sarah was struck by the rhythm of their united voices. Each testimony echoed the heart of a community awakening to their divine purpose. As she listened, inspiration blossomed in her chest. This wasn't merely a gathering, it was a sacred altar being raised amidst them, each story a brick laid, each prayer a beam. As the spotless moon watched over them, a woman named Elise stood to speak. Her voice shook, not from fear but from the weight of revelation that had stirred within her soul. I've never shared this before, but I need to. I was lost in despair, unable to see any hope for my future. And yet, God placed me here, surrounded by you all. Now I'm healing. I can't help but believe it's because of this, because of him, and because of you. The murmurs of encouragement that followed echoed through the gathering like a unifying prayer. They sensed a tangible shift. Perhaps they were becoming that beacon of hope for others, even for those who still felt ensnared by their pain. Yet, amidst the euphoria, Sarah felt a gentle tug at her heart. Would they be prepared for what was to come next? Would they have the faith to extend their circle even wider? As they closed the night with unified prayers and long embraces, the seeds of their faith found fertile ground, but the question lingered. How much further could they reach? What battles would they need to fight together, summoned by the very faith they were nurturing? Tomorrow would unveil a new chapter for Ashcroft, a deeper journey awaiting those willing to embrace the unknown. The dawn broke over Ashcroft, casting a soft light that seemed to whisper promises of hope. Sarah awoke with a sense of urgency tingling in her heart. Today, she felt, would not be like any other. The gathering from the night before lingered in her mind, its warmth still wrapped around her spirit like a gentle embrace. As she stepped outside, the air was crisp, filled with the melodies of chirping birds, as if the world itself was rejoicing alongside her. Determined to build on the foundation they had laid, she made her way to the village square. She felt a pull toward the heart of Ashcroft. With each step, she took a moment to pray, asking God to open her heart, to guide her words, and to draw individuals to his light. At the center of the square, she found Samuel, the local baker, setting up his stall. Flour dust clung to his apron, and a smile that reflected the joy of his craft brightened his face. Sarah approached him, excitement bubbling. "Samuel, I hope you'll join us tonight. It's going to be a special gathering." He looked uncertain, his hands pausing in their movements. "I've been struggling a lot lately, Sarah. Sometimes it feels like my prayers vanish before they even reach God." Her heart ached at his words. She reached out, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You know, every prayer carries weight. The act of speaking to God is sacred, and he hears you. You don't have to walk this path alone." As she spoke, a realization washed over her like a refreshing tide. Maybe their gathering could be about cultivating an even deeper sense of community and vulnerability. Samuel's expression softened, and he hesitated but then nodded. "All right, I'll be there. I could use some of that hope." With her spirits lifted, Sarah continued walking, inviting others along the way. Each conversation was a thread being woven into a larger fabric of shared experiences and faith. She sensed a divine urgency urging her onward, compelling her to reach as many hearts as possible. As dusk descended, they began to gather at the oak tree. The air crackled with excitement, the ensemble of voices growing like a symphony. It was a beautiful sight, a mosaic of people from all walks of life, each holding pieces of their stories with trembling hands. A sense of expectancy hung in the air, anticipating something profound. Pastor Jim opened the evening with a prayer that resonated deeply, filling the spaces between them with peace and purpose. As individuals stepped forward to share, tears flowed freely, and laughter mingled with sighs of relief. Elise stood again, her newfound joy a sight to behold. "I can't tell you how the Lord has turned my sorrow into dancing. I see now that my struggles were not in vain. They were stepping stones on my journey." Her voice crescendoed, prompting a collective cheer. The faith woven within the gathering crescendoed, echoing what they had discovered. They were not just survivors of their trials. They were mighty warriors under God's purpose. Yet, amidst the testimonies, a voice broke through, the voice of a young girl named Maya. With a trembling chin, she stepped forward, timid but resolute. "I've been scared to pray for things I didn't think God would listen to someone like me." Her honesty pierced through the atmosphere like a beam of light. Encouraging murmurs enveloped her, but Sarah felt the weight of the moment. Maya, what if I told you that your voice is powerful? What if your prayers matter more than you know? The air thickened, pregnant with possibility. Everyone leaned in, the collective spirit urging them to unite in prayer with Maya. Together, they bowed their heads, weaving their hearts in a tapestry of trust and faith. Sarah felt the surge of divine assurance course through them, and it was clear. This was just the beginning of something beautiful. As the night drew to a close, the moon cast its silver glow, witnessing the transformation that had begun. They had ventured into the unknown, armed with encouragement and faith. Yet, as they dispersed, Sarah's heart fluttered with anticipation. Would they be ready for the challenges they would face? What wondrous miracles awaited them as they stepped further into this divine journey? With hearts aglow, they clung to that mystery, eager to uncover the next call to faith that awaited. As the stars emerged one by one against the vast canvas of the night, they twinkled like promises from heaven. Sarah lingered under the oak tree, heart still racing with the afterglow of the gathering. She could feel the weight of hope swirling in the air, a tangible force coaxing her to lean deeper into faith. Each face she had seen tonight, reflections of their struggles, joys, and stories, filled her with a deep sense of purpose. The night was peaceful, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that a significant change was coming. She sensed that God was orchestrating something beyond their understanding, preparing each heart in Ashcroft for a higher calling. Her thoughts drifted back to Maya. What courage it took for that young girl to step forward, revealing her fears. It was a moment of vulnerability that embodied what it meant to truly seek God, knowing He would meet them right where they were. In the hushed silence, Sarah's reverie was broken by the soft crunch of footsteps on the gravel. She turned to see Samuel approaching again, his face illuminated by the moon's gentle glow. He looked unsettled, and there was a glimmer of concern in his eyes. "Sarah," he breathed, glancing toward the gathering's remnants. "I've been thinking. That prayer we all shared, it feels like it opened something in me, something I didn't even know was there. But it also scares me. Jam-packed transformations often come dressed in anxiety," she replied gently. "But remember, it's in the shadows of our fears that God shines His brightest light. What's weighing on you?" A sigh slipped from Samuel's lips as he cast his eyes downward. "I keep feeling this pull to share my own story, to lift the heavy burden of silence I've been carrying. But what if no one listens? What if they can't relate?" Sarah stepped closer, the warmth radiating from her heart wrapping around him like a protective scarf. "It's our honesty that connects us. When you share your story, you're inviting others to experience their own healing. You can't predict the impact your honesty could have on others. It could be the key that unlocks someone else's faith." Beneath the surface of his hesitation, she could see his spirit wrestling an amazing struggle to emerge. Samuel took a deep breath, emboldened by her encouragement. "I think I need to speak out at the next gathering. I can feel it in my bones. But I have so many doubts." "Bring those doubts into the light with your words," Sarah exclaimed, lifting her chin toward the shimmering sky. "We're called to share not only our victories but our battles as well. In our weakness, His strength is made perfect." They stood together in that stillness, letting the peace of God wrap around them. An overwhelming sense of assurance descended, and Sarah could feel a new ripple of faith extending between them. Just then, the wind picked up slightly, rustling the leaves of the oak, carrying whispers that felt like God's promise. "Let us pray," she suggested, and they closed their eyes together. Words flowed as they sought guidance, praising, requesting strength, and surrendering their fears, trusting that something divine was unfolding. As they prayed, the feelings of anxiety melted away, replaced by an electric energy surging through their hearts. Moments passed, and then, as if on cue, a flicker of light appeared in the distance. It shone brightly from down the road, drawing their attention. Was it just a lantern or something more? "Do you see that?" Samuel asked, squinting to get a better look. "Yes, it feels significant," Sarah whispered, sensing a swell of anticipation as her heart raced. What could it mean for their fledgling community? In that charged atmosphere, they grasped the hand of their faith, ready to embrace whatever miracle awaited them. Sarah's heart danced with expectation as they stepped forward into the night, their eyes fixed on the light growing brighter before them. What awaited them in that luminous glow? Would it be a miracle, revelation, or perhaps a challenge that would stretch their faith even further? As they walked toward the light, Sarah felt the cool breeze caress her skin, weaving through the trees like a gentle whisper from God. Each step felt like a movement into the divine, a tangible promise of something greater just beyond their sight. Samuel walked close beside her, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "What if it's something we're not ready for?" he murmured, breaking the silence. "Isn't that the beauty of God's plans?" Sarah smiled softly. "He doesn't wait for us to be ready. He meets us right where we are and carries us into his calling, even when we tremble." The flickering light grew larger, transforming from a mere glow to something more substantial. It pulsed with an energy that seemed to vibrate in the air around them. It was as if every heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of what lay ahead. As they rounded the bend, Sarah noticed that the shimmering illumination appeared to be coming from an old lantern perched upon a large stone. Surrounding it were a small gathering of townspeople, faces lit with curiosity and wonder. The warmth of community filled the air, knitting their fears into courage. "Look," Sarah said, "it's a gathering. They must feel it too." Samuel's eyes widened. "I never even realized how many of us have found ourselves here tonight." The light reflected in their eyes transformed anxiety into an unwavering light of hope. Individuals, both old and young, were drawn together as if by an invisible thread, all seeking the same reassurance in God's presence. A familiar voice broke through the crowd, Elder Joseph, his hands raised in blessing. "Brothers and sisters, beloved in Christ, we have felt a nudge from the Spirit tonight. I believe we are on the cusp of something profound." Excitement rippled through the air, and Sarah felt her heart race. The elder continued with a fervor that resonated deeply within her soul. "Tonight, it is not only about sharing fears. It is about embracing our collective strength. God calls us to be a community, united in faith. Together, we will illuminate the darkness." Encouraged, Samuel turned to Sarah. "This is it, isn't it? Our stories, our struggles, they all converge here." He began to step forward as if the motion itself was thrusting him into purpose.
"Yes,"
Sarah replied, the fire in her spirit igniting. "You're meant to share." She felt a surge of excitement wash over her, a divine push nudging her own heart to step forward, to engage. Within the circle, the townspeople started to share their thoughts, each shifting from fear to faith. They spoke of miracles that had touched their lives, and testimonies that rang through the chills of the night. With each word, the lantern-esque glow seemed to pulse brighter, sustaining the warmth of their worship. As they surrounded the lantern, Sarah felt a holy hush cover them, the atmosphere charged with expectancy. She glanced at Samuel, who was looking more determined, his heart steadying under the weight of community assurance. "Let us not hold back," Sarah urged quietly. "Let's share what God has done in our lives. I know your story will inspire them." Just then, a radiant beam shot out from the lantern, illuminating faces across the gathering. The light enveloped them, drawing even the shy ones closer, prompting them to share testimonies of transformation. Tears of joy glimmered, unifying their spirits as one. Yet, amidst the exhilaration, Sarah felt a deep pang of uncertainty. What if their sharing disrupted the comfort they had built? Was she truly willing to bare her soul? The lantern flickered, a reminder of the lingering doubts still grasping at her heart. Would her vulnerability truly serve the higher purpose God had in mind? As she contemplated, the elder turned to them once more. "And so, I ask you this. What has God placed on your heart tonight? Who is ready to step into the light?" In that moment of silence, when hearts held their breath in anticipation, Sarah could feel the weight of decision. Would she answer the call, or would she pull away from the light that beckoned her forward? The air hung thick with
possibility.
a stirring of courage surged within her, compelling her toward the lantern-esque glow. What would she share, and how would her story weave into the fabric of this moment? The answers awaited her just ahead, beckoning her to leap into the unknown. Would the approach of surrender bring revelation? As Sarah stood at the edge of the lantern's glow, a whirl of thoughts cascaded through her mind. The faces surrounding her were filled with hope and expectation, yet she felt small and vulnerable. What if her story, when placed beside their triumphs, felt insignificant? A small voice in her heart urged her forward. What if her truth could light the path for someone else? Elder Joseph's eyes scanned the group, searching for those ready to step into the light. "Let's not hesitate," he encouraged, his voice both gentle and bold. "Each story, no matter how small, is part of the grand tapestry God is weaving among us." His words hung in the air like an offering. One by one, the people began to speak, sharing their hardships and the remarkable ways God had lifted them. A middle-aged woman recounted her struggle with despair and how prayer had ushered in a wave of peace. A young man spoke fervently of a miraculous job opportunity that emerged from unexpected circumstances. As each tale unfolded, Sarah felt a distinct warmth spreading through her chest, an encouraging fire of connection that resonated deeply. Samuel stood nearby, nodding along, a smile radiating from him. "Look at how they're opening up," he whispered to Sarah. "It's beautiful. This is what we came for." Sarah marveled at how testimonies seemed to bind them together in a sacred embrace. The lantern-esque flicker reflected their growing faith, illuminating hidden corners of their fears with divine promise. Around her, people laughed, cried, and reached toward one another, drawing strength from the shared experiences of resilience and grace. Then, in a moment that felt like both eternity and an instant, Sarah realized that she did not need to be an extraordinary speaker. She only needed to be honest. Each miracle they shared was birthed from the soil of struggle, and perhaps that was the power of God's work among them. With a deep breath, she took a step forward. The atmosphere felt charged as she approached the lantern, the collective gaze of her neighbors heavy yet encouraging. I want to share," she stammered, the courage bubbling within her. As the words began to flow, Sarah spoke of personal loss, of grappling with doubt, and the gradual restoration of her faith. Her voice trembled at first, but grew steadier, infused with divine assurance, as she recalled how prayer had drawn her through dark seasons into the light again. The weight of her burdens lightened as she unwrapped her truth before them. Through her honesty, she saw nods of understanding and sympathy. The warmth of God's presence wrapped around her, filling her heart with a lightness she had long thought lost. "And I discovered," she concluded, "that even in our brokenness, God calls us to share our journeys not just for ourselves, but to uplift each other. This community has been a shelter for me, and I'm grateful for every soul here." A ripple of affirming murmurs swept through the crowd. Tears glistened in many eyes, and a palpable shift resonated among them. Samuel beamed as he gently placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Sarah knew then that this was what God intended, a gathering of hearts deeper than any single story could convey. As the lantern glimmered brighter, Elder Joseph spoke again, his voice a soothing balm. "Look around, dear friends. What we have witnessed tonight is the heartbeat of our faith. Our experiences intertwined, revealing God's goodness even in adversity." But just as hope filled the air, a shadow flickered at the edges of Sarah's mind. An unsettling question lingered: what lay ahead after this moment of shared testimony? What challenges would they face as the light revealed their hearts more fully? As she pondered the uncertain path before them, the lantern dimmed slightly, almost as if in response to her internal struggle. "Brothers and sisters," Elder Joseph began once more, "what do we do now as a united body? Let us pray for clarity and strength as we continue this journey together." As they closed their eyes, Sarah found herself trembling with anticipation, both fear and faith intertwining. What revelation awaited them beyond this prayer? What pivotal moment was just about to unfold in their journey? The flickering lantern awaited them, a beacon drawing them toward divine mystery. Where would they go from here? The prayer hovered in the air, a fragile yet powerful whisper binding each heart together. Sarah felt a foundational shift within her, a collective determination pulsing through every soul. They were not merely a gathering of seekers. They were becoming something greater, an unbreakable community of faith, love, and shared stories. As they opened their eyes, Elder Joseph's voice echoed with authority and compassion. "We have embraced our vulnerabilities tonight, but let us not forget the power of our shared commitment. God has called us to action to extend this light beyond our sacred circle." He paused, scanning the faces surrounding him, each one reflecting a flicker of possibility. "Let us find those who still wander in darkness." A surge of excitement electrified the crowd. Conversations sparked like firecrackers, enthusiasm cascading as individuals shared ideas and plans for reaching out to their neighbors and friends. Sarah, overwhelmed yet invigorated, felt warmth flood her being. This was what they had been called to, deeds manifesting from faith. Samuel's voice broke through her thoughts. "What if we created outreach teams? We could divide into smaller groups, each tasked with encouraging our neighbors to join this movement of faith." The idea was met with nods and murmurs of agreement. Sarah's heart swelled at Samuel's newfound confidence. Elder Joseph raised his hand, silencing the growing buzz. "Yes, that is a great idea. However, we must also ensure that we stay anchored in prayer. Let us not rush into action without seeking God's guidance." They shared a moment of quiet together, the air thick with reverence and purpose. Sarah closed her eyes, tuning into the heartbeat of their community. She could feel the spirit wrapping around them, a tangible assurance that this was bigger than their individual journeys. It was a tapestry woven by divine hands. When the silence broke, one by one, people began to speak again. Ideas flowed like rivers, passionate discussions unfolding about how they could reach those in need. A young woman proposed visiting local hospitals. An elderly man suggested creating care packages for the lonely and forgotten. Sarah knew every suggestion was another thread woven into the intricate fabric of their mission. And then, the moment she had been waiting for arrived. As the fervor reached its apex, Elder Joseph stepped forward. "Let us prepare our hearts for the commitment it takes to step into this mission. Each of you is essential to supporting one another. Together, we can shine a light for others to see their way back to hope." With renewed purpose, they took up lanterns, small, humble beacons designed to guide them on their way. As they lit their lanterns in the enchanting glow, it felt like a symbol of dedication, an invitation to let their own fires of faith ignite the world around them. The night sky became a testament to the power of their community. "Now," Elder Joseph said softly, "let us pray for courage as we begin this journey together." They gathered in a tight circle, each hand resting on the shoulder of the person beside them, hearts aligned, a patchwork of faith and love. As Sarah closed her eyes, her heart overflowed. She prayed deeply for those who still felt lost, for those who would encounter their paths, and for their ability to walk alongside each other. She felt a warmth wash over her, igniting a sense of oneness, not just with those present, but with all who sought solace in God. The prayers took flight, rising to the heavens like incense, carrying dreams of healing, connection, and divine intervention. The gathering became a vibrant chorus of courage and anticipation. They would reach out, not just with words but with the embodiment of God's love. As the gathering concluded, the community began to disperse, lanterns in hand, laughter trailing behind them like a melody of hope. Sarah felt certain of the journey ahead. The winds of change had shifted in Ashcroft, sending ripples of faith far beyond their chapel walls. With Samuel at her side, she had rediscovered the beauty of shared purpose. She turned to him, grinning from ear to ear. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" "Yes," he replied, filled with conviction. "And it's just the beginning." They stepped into the night, lanterns glowing brightly, hearts unburdened and spirits ignited. Together, they would shine brightly, illuminating paths for others, guiding them home to faith. And as they walked onward, Sarah could hardly contain the joy bubbling within her. God was at work, and she was grateful to be a part of this magnificent story unfolding a testament to his everlasting presence, love, and transformative power in the world. But underneath that joy, anticipation bubbled, rippling within her spirit. What challenges lay ahead? This was only the first step. Would their faith hold strong when faced with obstacles? The story was far from over. The adventure of faith was just beginning, but for now, the light shone brighter than ever before. And with each step, they embraced the unfolding journey awaiting them, a journey of light, love, and unwavering faith. Remember, dear friends, stay close to your own lanterns of hope. God is calling all of us to share our stories, to shine our lights. If this story moved your hearts, you need to subscribe immediately. This is the moment to show your support for more incredible faith stories like this. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so others can experience this transformational light. Comment your reactions and testimonies about how faith has impacted your life and the power of community. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to see this manifestation. Let us shine together.